Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
I am so happy you asked. I've got so many stories. But this one story is a fucking shocker. So the year is 2001. I wake up in the morning and then my mom was like, go wake up your older sister. So I go upstairs, open her door, and then she's not there. Even her bed wasn't there. I go downstairs and I go like, Mom, my sister is not there. She goes like, what? Just open your eyes, you fucking idiot. Go check again. So I go upstairs to check again and obviously she's not there. I go downstairs and go like, Mom, she's not there. So she looks at my grandma and she goes like, hey, can you please go check? My grandma goes this time and obviously my sister is still not there. So she goes down again. She tells my mom, my sister is not there. So we look all over the house for her, and then where we found her was on the rooftop, on the edge of the roof, with her bed. If you just flick the bed, she will fall and die. And that's how we knew my sister was possessed. You see all the shit you see in the movies, the pictures on the walls falling and shaking, you hear voices through the walls, yeah, all that shit. So my entire childhood was with my possessed sister.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
All right, I've got a good one for this. So when I was little, I used to go wander around our property, and we had about 20 acres of land. It's mostly pasture. But anyway, I remember being out there once. I was probably like 5 years old, maybe, and I kept feeling like I was being watched, but I couldn't figure out from where. And it was luckily I had my dog with me. Her name was Jet. She was a little border collie. But anyway, I got to the edge of the tree line heading back towards my house, and I could hear something rustling in the bushes, and I turned around and there was a huge coyote that was watching me. And my dog took off into the woods and I could hear them fighting, and she came back and had killed the coyote, but that thing was definitely trying to hunt me.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
Okay, so I am from Alabama, and if you know anyone from Alabama, or you are from Alabama, or anywhere in the South, you know that we are built different and we are a different breed of human. So when I was growing up, my parents would just say, okay, I love you, have fun, go play outside until the sun goes down. If you're thirsty, drink from the hose. And that was fine with me because my best friend's uncle, who was my neighbor, had a car repair shop. And behind this car repair shop was this huge junkyard that to a child seemed like heaven. All of the cars were completely free game. We would play inside of them. We would lock each other in the trunks of them in the middle of 110-degree Alabama summers. And we would just laugh. We had a clubhouse that we made in one of the cars that was an old rusted out van that someone 100% was murdered in. I swear to God. And then there was one time that we found a car that was a rattlesnake nest. Yes, both of our parents knew and they didn't care.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
Okay, so when I was 8, I was on a beach with my family in LA, and I had a boogie board in my hand, right? And 8-year-old me would go boogie boarding because it was fun, right? But what I didn't realize that there was a 35-foot wave literally towering over me like a skyscraper, and when it hit me, I was holding my breath and my boogie board for dear life, and the boogie board hit me in my nose, and I was in agonizing pain, but I tried not to open up my mouth and not let ocean water in my mouth. And when the wave settled down, I finally gasped for air and basically escaped with a nosebleed. So yeah, I basically survived getting hit by a huge wave.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
Okay, I was 18 at the time, not a kid, but dad was cheating on my mom. She just really knows how to pick him, right? Dumbass. Anyway, instead of leaving him, she wants to escalate the situation, so we go to the house. And I'm like, can we not go here unless the police are there? Because there are guns, and I felt uncomfortable. Like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. I go inside. They go out in the yard and start talking. All of a sudden I hear, lock the door! So I ran to the door and I locked it. This EE motherfucker kicked in the door. So I'm standing there crying, screaming. He runs to his room and grabs a gun. It's like, oh, not today, I'm not dying. I grabbed a knife. I booked it out the door. A little 411S ran. It's like everyone for themselves. I don't know exactly what happened. I ran into the woods. But he got in the truck and he left and he was going to go shoot himself. I don't care. That could happen. I wouldn't. Whatever. Yeah, I'm 75% sure he was about to shoot all of us and then himself.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
When I was a kid, I went to afternoon kindergarten with my best friend, and I was a bit of a space cadet, so she would usually prompt me to get off the bus at our stop. But one day she was out sick. And so that day I got lost in a daydream and forgot to get off at my stop and didn't know what to do, so I just sat there until the end of the line. And I went up to the bus driver and I said, I forgot to get off at my stop, what do I do? And she looked at me and said, you're just gonna have to get off here and figure it out. I was in kindergarten. I was 5. She dropped me off on a busy road about a mile from my parents' house. And it was the late 80s. I feel like stranger danger was really big in after school specials. So I was terrified to ask any adults for help because I thought any adults I didn't know would kidnap me. So I just wandered crying for about 2 hours and eventually somehow made it back to my parents' house. Not one person stopped to ask me if I was okay, but I made it home.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
So I mostly grew up in Guatemala, and when I was 12, my mother and her friends decided to do a women's and children's trip to like this cute little bungalow in the rainforest. I, along with 3 other kids around my age, decided to go exploring. We did a little hike, and as you can imagine, we got promptly lost in the middle of the jungle in Guatemala. We have no idea where we are or where we're supposed to go. We kind of had a vague idea that the volcano was that way when we started walking, but we don't know what that means to get back. But we do see a little mountain, and we say, oh, if we climb that, maybe we'll be able to see the vacation home. Scrambling up, slipping and sliding, like getting filthy, grabbing onto roots to haul ourselves up. And once we get to the summit, all you can see is jungle. But on the other side of the mountain, we saw a dirt road, so we made our way down to that and hauled down a pickup truck. Then we proceeded to hitchhike back to more or less where this man thought we were supposed to go. By then it's so late, we're filthy, exhausted, and terrified about how much trouble we're going to get into once we get back to this place. I mean, we could have been lost forever in this jungle, eaten by something, killed or kidnapped by the driver, but we were more afraid of our moms. When we got back, they had been drinking and didn't even realize we were gone.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
You want to do this? Let's do this. When I was about 3 years old, back in the mid-1970s, my dad didn't want to keep fighting for custody in the courts, so he decided to pack me, my 2 older brothers, his teenage girlfriend, and a full-grown St. Bernard into a very old station wagon and drive us from Santa Cruz, California, up into the Alaskan wilderness. Like 100 miles from a town. There we moved into an almost 100-year-old log cabin, and we lived there for about a year. But oops, my dad and stepmom kind of accidentally left us there. I don't really know all the details, but I do know that we were picked up by 3 dudes in a helicopter, like that were really freaked out to have found a bunch of small children in the wilderness by themselves. And I had scurvy. You know who gets scurvy? Pirates from the 1600s! That was the stable part of my childhood. It turned out fine. I mean, look at my gums. Look at.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
My mom killed my dad. Kept the lower half of his body in a freezer in the basement. Wish I was kidding.
Tell me a story from your childhood that looking back on it now, you're surprised you survived.
Oh, my time has come. Okay, growing up, my family was really, really poor. And one time we decided that we were going to take a family vacation. But the thing is, we couldn't really afford to take a normal vacation. My parents, in their infinite wisdom, decided to get us a motel room that was right next to a little theme park. We're adamant about the fact that even though we were staying there, we were absolutely not going to be able to go to this theme park. So we wound up spending the day like fishing or whatever. And then it was the middle of the night. Me and my sister had gone to sleep in front of the TV, sharing like a little motel bed. Meanwhile, my parents were getting sloshed. They woke us up at like 3 a.m. and they were like, we have a great idea. It wasn't. Like, we're gonna break into this theme park in the middle of the night. My sister and I were still in like our pajamas, and we pull on some sneakers and we go and trek across this lake. When we get there, there's like this big fence, and my parents are like, we're just gonna throw you over. They yeeted us over this fence. Now, my sister and I are like 6 and 7 years old, and we're on the inside of this park illegally in the middle of the night, and we're looking through the fence, and my parents are like, yeah, we're drunk. We have no balance. We can't do this. My mom's like, we're going to find another way in. Don't get caught. They left us. Eventually, they did find their way in, but we don't know how they did it because they don't remember.